And you can hear me? Just make sure that you sit in a comfortable position and close your eyes. Let's take a few moments to just recognize what is here. On one level, there is the experience of the sensations in this moment, but that is always filtered by the perceiver, by your subjective sense of what is going on, and your acceptance of that. This subjectivity can resist the experience, can enjoy the experience, but in actuality, everything is just happening. Even the experience of the experiencer. Most people never recognize the experiencer. It's usually just a play in the intellect, a philosophical idea of the I. And the recognition when you start to observe the experiencer is that you start to notice that it is as fleeting as thoughts. Because it is just another thought. And this subjectivity is perceived as quite real for most. But almost everyone can recognize that it is coming and going. Sometimes when you're deeply into a conversation or maybe something that you create or something that completely absorbs you, you lose this sense of being separate. There is just the doing, there's just the happening. And when you get out of it and again identify with the idea of the experiencer, it feels like you're coming back. Notice all this, and you notice the mechanics of identification. Can you be something that is coming and going? And if so, how and what is? How is that being perceived in that case? What is experiencing the experiencer? What knows that the idea of the person comes and goes? What can observe all these transient things? And is that observer bound by time? Does the awareness itself has anything to do with the time? Contemplate. What is the experience beyond time? What is the experience of time? Is that real, or is that in thinking only? Does it need that you create something, or is it inherent in this moment? Go to the source of identification itself and see what it is, what remains. Maybe you have a sense that the eye feels very fleeting, and when you try to look for it in the present moment, what is it that you find? Is the belief of the I real? Can you comprehend the question? Is what you take yourself to be, and when you talk to others, what they take themselves to be, when they refer to the I, is that true? Or is that only a transient thought? Another thought that comes and goes. Another thought that needs to be believed in and upheld. And if so, what is your nature? And is your nature different from this moment's nature? Is it different from awareness itself? Where are you in this experience? Is there a center to it? Is there a point of origin for you? If you start to look at this, you will only come to one thing. It is the recognition of beingness itself. silent will for most at first feel uncomfortable. It will feel like you're drowning in silence and want to grasp for something, an idea, identity, something. But if you let it be, you notice the vastness of just being. That this centerless experience is the source of love. Everything comes from this source. And this source is not a specific point. It is just pure awareness. And all you have to do is just look, come back to the source of it. It's like everyone is looking at the painting, but you start to recognize that every painting is painted on a canvas. Whatever the expression of the painting can differ vastly, different styles, different years it was painted, but everything has the same background. It's always a canvas. This is the same with every thought. Even if the thought contains the idea of I or other, or the experience perceived by the idea of I. Notice. Whatever your mind says, you don't have to go with it. You can just stay as you are. Gently open your eyes, move your body a little bit, stretch out your arms and legs if you have to. On one level, we come to a gathering like this. It feels like you have taken your body, you're taking the intention, you come, you sit, you do your things. You feel like you decide to do your sadhana, you feel like you decide to come, listen. But in the depth of our experience, there is no body, there is no doing, there is no doer, there is no coming, there is no going, there is just beingness itself. And I understand to some that might sound strange. That might not sound like the obvious thing. But just the investigation of if that statement is true reveals a lot. And usually it carries with it that something in your intuitive sense feels like, that is true. I know it to be true on some level. Even if it sounds strange to the mind, there is something in experiencing that has this quality. Maybe you have direct experience of it, or it's just a strong intuitive sense that says, there is something here. To say that spirituality in its authentic form is an easy path would be to simplify it too much. To the one who sees something in it, who have a sense that truth is here, it is simple. In a way, the difficulty is the resistance of the mind. Because the ego wants to survive. It wants to continue. It feels like its idea of life is life itself. And it makes all these things to just continue staying relevant. And what happens to most is that they move along in spirituality, and in a sense, if we're going to talk about it like this, there is a growth, there is a maturity in it that happens. And at a certain point, the most difficult point is when you start to feel good. You start to feel happy, spacious. This is the greatest challenge in meditation, because in that it's so easy to just pitch your tent and make your camp. Here I am comfortable. Look at all the things that my spirituality have given me. Look how peaceful my mind often gets. Look how much better my relationships have become. How much more enjoyable the world is. I'm just gonna camp here and reap the fruits of my accomplishment. You understand how easy it is to pitch this tent. And when I left Swami, when I saw him the last time, he recognized this same thing. He said, "Don't stop your sadhana," because he saw that I was very, very happy, very content. That is a strange world. I think one of the most challenging camps there is. Because on the way there can also be the one who says that spirituality is too hard or too fairy tale-ish, promises too much. And you ground yourself so much that you also pitch a tent and camp. You think the promise of freedom, of spirituality itself, is too much. It's unrealistic. I'm sure if you have friends and you discuss these things, you have someone who feels this way about it. And I didn't really understand that I had the same view. I felt like I was all in, did my retreats, did my self-inquiry, did all my sadhana, did everything, like all in. And when the moment came where the ego started to break, I still felt like I wanted to point to my teacher and says, "What he's saying is true. It's not just philosophy, it's actually..." And in that moment I realized that I had the idea of that in some way that it was just a nice way of approaching life, or that was still with me. And it's beautiful when that breaks. And also, when you practice, or maybe beyond the point where you feel like that the effortlessness takes over, then bliss comes, happiness comes, and it just becomes normal. And I want to say what my guru said to me: don't camp. Or if you do, make sure it's a tent, not a house. Keep the door open. Allow yourself to explore again. also perhaps you had a moment of that the ego falls and it feels so free, but it scares the crap out of you. This is very common, and you will be very careful with spirituality for a while. But don't camp forever. When the longing comes back, when the fear subsides, follow it again. And perhaps you also come to a point where you again don't know where to go. And maybe it starts to feel like it doesn't even matter. Just stay with it still. Ask for help when it's needed. Maybe you just have to give yourself to something greater. Invite the whole. Invite godliness. Invite the universe. Be with it as it is, distanceless. In that sense, there is no God, there is no external, there is no universe, there is only you. However you like to see it. The difficult thing in sadhana is that the things you're blind to, you don't see them. So sometimes you just don't know what you're stuck on. Because if you knew, you wouldn't be stuck on it. And in this you can just surrender to not knowing. To allow the humbleness of being ignorant. Because all of these things put you in alignment with what is, even when the what is ignorance. You will notice the correlation between your words and your actions, how they create more karma or don't. What happens to the mind when a promise is made and not kept? What happens to the mind when a promise is made and kept? What is the difference in silence? I think most people do not ask that question. What makes a peaceful mind? What makes the mind spacious? Natural, sensitive. It's so easy to draw the conclusion that the world is too much and I have to be insensitive or put up my guard. But what happens when you allow it? feel the sadness of things and allow it. And don't fall into the identified traps of hopefulness or hopelessness, but you're really with what is felt. Most things that are done from the perspective of duality. In some rare cases, we hear of something that is beyond that. And when we're looking at the world as a duality, we try to fix it in form of that. But as you noticed about political climate and relationships between people, often with effort comes just more division. And my guru told us when someone asked what they could do for the world, and he said, when you don't know yourself, what can you do? Because it's so easy to do things from ignorance then. And most people, as soon as they start to feel comfortable in beingness itself, their objectives change. Because it's different when you are the world from feeling separate from it. Ola, did you have a question?
You answered.
Okay, very good. The experience is like layers, and the difficulty in seeing that is that those layers blind each other. In the moment when you did your sadhana, and perhaps when you listen to this, it's very easy to be in contact with what is. But when you're in your everyday life and you feel emotional about things, you feel tired, you feel upset, it's very easy that everything comes into that. And the great thing with coming back to a sadhana that is the same all the time is that you quickly notice. If you come to a neutral space and just watch this moment, you notice, oh, my heart rate is elevated, my skin is warm, oh, I'm irritated. But you didn't notice it before because you were taken by the ideas of the mind. Everyone thinks that they're neutral. I think I told this story before about the guy that I met that talked about that he was going to start a political party that was based on common sense. And all I had to say to him is that I have bad news. I think that every party started like this. Every party feels like we have the common sense people are idiots. Everyone feels like that. And also the subjective experience. Could you ease down a little? Slow down. And even when you're emotional and you're taken by your own things, you think that you're like this guy, that you're still common sense. Even if you feel like everyone is angry, I have to defend myself, or whatever sense you could have. We're blind and we think that we're neutral when we're absolutely not. I know that all of you have had experiences when you suddenly noticed, I'm really upset, but I didn't even notice it, or stressed, or irritated, or something. And the observation of those states from a standpoint of neutrality reveals them at once, as you noticed also. This is the power of sadhana. This is the power of having a practice that you come back to. Because you might feel fine before you sit down, and then you notice, I'm super restless. But you didn't notice because you just did things in alignment with that. You just did a lot of things. You started to clean at home and fixing everything. So you just felt like, oh, it feels like I have energy today. But it's just restlessness. And if someone would tell you to just wait or be calm for a while, you would just vibrate. Have you heard about this experiment that they did with keeping people in an empty room for 15 minutes? This is a scientific experiment that I heard of. And they first did a neutral test with people to just sit in a room for 15 minutes without any stimulus. They didn't have their phone, they didn't have anything, just staring into a wall. And almost 100% of people, and 15 minutes is not a long time, almost 100% of the test subjects thought that was painful. So the scientists, they did a second experiment, which was that they were put in a room for 15 minutes, and the only thing that they could do is that there were a button, and if they pressed it, they got a light shock. "25% of women pressed the button during the 15 minutes, and 75% of men pressed the button." They wanted something to happen, even if it was just pain, instead of just facing 15 minutes of nothing. So if you wonder why people create drama, start to argue, project their things, they don't have to be aware of it, but they're just so much in pain of the nothing. Most people don't realize how much they avoid that. And I have met people who say, I cannot wait for the bus. It's too painful. I cannot take the bus. I'd rather spend my money on taxis or something else because I cannot wait. And that is a brutal life. And that is almost all people that suffer not being able to just stay. So if you have a sadhana where you sit 30 minutes every day, you're doing something that very few people are comfortable with. And just good to understand that when you, in many days, feel uncomfortable in your 30 minutes of meditation. And being comfortable with being uncomfortable becomes super important in that. Because most people just distract themselves and feel forced to distract themselves and have to always bring something to distract themselves, or they avoid every scenario where you could be without distractions. It seems normal to most people, but it limits your life a lot. And the peace that comes with being with your uncomfortable emotions and just observing them instead of always being triggered and going to fix them also creates a lot of space. They're very, very simple things, and they seem so basic, but very few people move in that. It's so easy nowadays. Everyone has a computer in their pocket and can just do all kinds of distractions on it. Boredom is underrated. Not being stimulated all the time is underrated because it creates so much space. Everyone wants to ask something.
Or just maybe say something to as a response to what you said. Yeah, I found it really strange, but that was like because I met some people and they have been meditating for many years, like more than a decade, probably 2 decades or something like that, and still they didn't like, or they found silence to be boring. And they
Yes,
had
but that is not the problem.
No.
You can find silence to be boring, but can you be okay with the experience of boring?
Yeah, but it seemed like they wanted to kind of like entertain
Yes.
themselves somehow instead of being bored.
It is starvation of the ego to be bored. It cannot do its things in that. That's why it's so frustrating. And there is no continuation in that space. That's why 15 minutes feels far too much for most people. Because there's no upholding, there is no continuation of something. It just feels like a little death. And almost no one wants to touch that. No one wants to wait. People suffer it so much. Waiting in line in the supermarket. You see some people there like...
They're very jittery.
Yes.
Like
they're really fighting with it.
Like in lines you can really see
Yes.
the quality of the people in society. Like
Yeah.
So something as
And some are very
nothing.
comfortable with just being there, enjoying the moment. Others are completely stressed out by not being somewhere else. And I know that these things we talk about are so normal. We're talking about something that everyone experiences and we think is so normal, but it just means that there is a lot of, when you're in that situation and you want to be at home instead, it can seem like a completely valid thought, but that just makes you not being here. Oh, can I just get out of this store and get home? I can sit on the couch and just... That longing makes you not be in the moment. But that couch sitting is not happening. The standing in line is happening. And it makes such a difference to the quality of your moment when some moments, and all moments, can have it can be allowed to be there. I know it sounds simplistic and simple, but this is not the acceptance of most people. Even meditators for 20 years can still want to, I just want to get out of here.
It's yeah.
Sadhana is not, you will get more peaceful if you do your sadhana and never think of meditation. But if your sadhana sparks that everything is sadhana, then it's so powerful. And even Ramana said, you don't have to stop your self-inquiry. You can do it all the way in the waking state all the time, he said.
And even when the vasanas comes up, we can just ask.
Yes. To who are the vasanas coming up?
And that's what you said. Like, if people don't want to stand in line, and but they want to sit in their couch, but also people can't sit in their couch if they're not distracted. So and then maybe they want to go to the store to stand in the line, and this just goes round and round and round.
Yes.
And it's like this rat race, this kind of like
yes.
wheels.
And I think that many people have it. They call like society the hamster wheel or the rat race or these kind of terms to talk about it. But the place where that is going on is in ideas. It's not in the actuality of it. And of course that is reflected when you yourself feel like you just have to go from place to place. If you all the time have to move, all the time have to stimulate yourself in different ways and fix things, then it feels like a lot of work. And I think that many people have the sense that their life is just a lot of work to just keep some kind of base level to things.
The base level?
Yes, like it could be all kinds of ideas also what your life should what your life should be, how the standard should be. If you have children, what is the standard for them, how they, all these ideas. So it just piles up, and also all the time that most people have to deal with just making themselves feel all right. That takes like most of the time and spills over into everything. And it feels like, and at first if you start to question your life and you want to feel better, that is usually where people start. Oh, I have to prioritize myself. That is like the first step. I want to feel better, so I have to prioritize myself, I have to look after myself, and I have to exercise perhaps, and start maybe some kind of sadhana, some meditation practice, and be in nature more, or whatever you do. But there has to be more to the sadhana than that. And that's why I always emphasize that look what sadhana makes your mind silent. Look what sadhana makes you make you have to uphold your life less? What sadhana makes your life just accepting, and you can just enjoy the moment, be with it, where the spaciousness comes by itself, where these moments just appear, when there is no effort, because the whole idea of effort and upholding the life is so ingrained in identity. And it seems like it has to go through that. It has to go first into the movement of what most people are drawn to, these personal development things and taking care of yourself and health. That's why it's so popular. Everyone longs for that. That is like the surface level of just making the ego feel good enough to just be comfortable enough in your own skin to be able to question things.
But one sadhana could be happy, or like find the just contact with that surrender and surrender. I'm doing that right?
Yes, but and these things have a little bit of a connection. Like you and I have had conversations about also that you have put so much effort into spirituality that you have like 3 teachers that you go to regularly and have good contact with. Yes, so you have so much of that in your life, but your relative and life and your daily life, your everyday life is always in a bit of a chaos. Yes. So then there is a need for balance with those things. Because it's great that you have so much spirituality in your life, but and there's very few people who go into that so completely that is a big part of their life. So it's very beautiful, but it has to be balanced with also having some kind of income or place to live that is sustainable and that you enjoy all those things. So these 2 parts have to play along, and it's so easy to be in the spirituality. Can feel like it promised me eternal freedom and enlightenment, and I feel and all the ideas of the person gets projected into that, and that is what we call spiritual bypassing.
But they have to merge, like the person had, and the everyday life have to merge into the.
Yes, that is also a part of the experience, and also has to be accepted. But it's not your way of approaching it is not the most common way. The common way is to be too much focused in the material and in all those things, and all effort goes into this more rajastic effort, goes into fixing all those things and making them great, and then live a life that feels empty, that you have almost no spirituality in. It's also there.
And if so, most people do it in the rajastic way, and what? And then
yes,
how
because
would you describe
because usually people move from tamastic qualities to rajastic qualities. And if you don't know what that is, tamastic quality is like laziness, low effort, the whatever attitude. Those things are in the tamastic qualities. And usually people in that energy, I call it the smoking weed, playing video game energy. They just want to distract themselves. There is no ambition in it. And often, if you are very much in that energy, you look up to rajastic energy, which is the doer, the entrepreneur, the one who is changing the world or making something out of themselves. They look up to that quality.
You could call that a restless, right?
It
can be restless.
It can be restless, but it's usually just a belief that ambition is really what makes you. You create yourself. you create your world, your life. It's very much about creating an environment that is the rajasic energy. And if you're in that for a while, and I've seen this with many people who are very successful, for example, in business or in their lives, and they achieved a lot, then the longing comes for the sattvic qualities. To be at peace, to feel content. And all people move between these different, but usually one of them is like their base.
You talk about all the three, or tamas and rajas.
Yes, but the sattvic can also be your base, but you come sometimes into rajasic qualities or even tamastic qualities, but you're mainly in sattvic.
Ramana said that, like sometime he gave the teaching that actually the tamas and rajas are of the body mind, but the sattva is our real nature, and actually it's not of the body mind. Like sometimes
yes,
or I mean,
it is beyond the sattvic qualities are the ones that are beyond the material. It's like to be interested in a relationship with godliness or God or beingness or whatever you want to call it, and that feels very much close. And Ramana also said that you don't have control how you move between with these qualities, but what do you do when you're sattvic? He said that is what you should have focus on. Use the sattvic moments, the ones even if you're usually in very rajasic and doing, and sometimes it just comes to sattvic. You come into sattvic space. Do you do your inquiry? Do you do sadhana in that?
Yes, and if you start doing like every evening, for example, you have some rituals, and then like normally that would, then the sattvic qualities would start to come at that time. They were taken like
Yes.
things like that.
Yes.
But I was wondering if you said like everyone is fixing, or not everyone, but the common thing is to fix their life, like the outward life, in a rajasic way, and then just
Yes, you know when that I sometimes say that, and I hope that your dreams will be fulfilled or crushed, so
know.
that you will, because that comes from the rajasic, and if you get enough experience with the doing, you will see that if you fulfill your dreams, you will see that they don't complete you, they don't fulfill you. And if they get crushed and they become impossible, that also can show the same thing. And all these is just pointers towards a sattvic life.
I just wanted to ask, like, and what you said I was doing with my life, could you put that in the same analogy, like in the rajas and tamas and sattvic? Like, do you understand what I mean?
You look up to sattvic qualities, which is beautiful. You hold them so high, but that makes you neglect the part of you that is drawn into more rajasic. The things that you want to fulfill in that, you say, that is not important, I only want the sattvic qualities.
So I suppress them?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you suppress your rajasic drive when it's there. And I think in your specific case, it's very important to balance these two, so that you have a sense that you are creating your life. It sounds counterintuitive when we talk about spirituality, because that is very much of the ego. But that needs to happen for you to. Nukunu would say that it is, you need a crystallized ego to be able to break the ego.
Yeah, I think you said similar things too. your questions.
Um,
Yeah, I was thinking about this. No, I think you're right, and also that makes sense, because then the all these kind of expressions, like if I have creative expressions and doing like more breath work and active meditations which are cathartic, or like with dancing, that seems like then I more easy get in touch with the subtle qualities when I get to express the orgastic parts that I neglected. So
yes.
and I also
Ola,
want, yeah.
you have to let Emma ask her question.
Is that okay? Or did you
Yes.
want to finish?
No, I'm cutting him off.
You have to do that.
You have to talk for 45 minutes.
I was thinking about addictions in all this, and I've been thinking about that before too, and I was wondering if you could say something about addictions, like, obviously there are different addictions, like substances or food,
Yes.
or sex, or thoughts or feelings,
Yes.
or thought patterns.
The number one addiction is to the idea of the person. That is the source of all addictions, because the idea of that creates the dissatisfaction. And I would say that most addiction is just an expression of that dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
Some people can take the dissatisfaction quite okay, others can't handle it at all. It just feels like there's always the emptiness of not being in the non-allowance of this moment as it is. It's just intolerable to some people, and so it has nothing to do that like ideas that you hear sometimes that some people just have such bad character and blah blah blah. Usually, most people who are addicted to substances, for example, they're just very sensitive people, and they couldn't find another way to approach it than through a substance. And probably when they were quite young, they tried this substance, they drank alcohol the first time, and just felt, oh, this is it. This is so nice, such a relief. And then they're hooked, because they have no other expression, and only when that comes to a point where it destroys all the relationships, and it maybe their relationship to their children or loved ones, and it gets then they go into trying to get out of it, and then they had to find spirituality, usually in some way. And it's always in all these programs of getting rid of substance, like the AA movement and all, it has always to do with surrender. Is a big part of all those. So addiction can seem like it's very personal or very external, but it usually comes from just the same suffering that everyone has, and it's just trying to cope with the world from that person's view in the best way.
Sorry, because I was thinking about that, what you mentioned about the pain of sitting in a room for 15 minutes, and I reckon it has something to do, that sort of pain has something to do with the pain of being addicted, not being able to bear the present moment, and
Yes.
you want to get out of it.
Yes, that is it shows very clearly that people are not comfortable with the present moment as it is. And yes, that is dukkha, that is suffering through dissatisfaction. And I think that most people underestimate how powerful that suffering is. because they would say, I don't really suffer like that in my life. But if you just put with nothing to do, and you push a button to shock yourself rather than just staring into the wall, that shows that something is, you'd rather have pain than nothing. Thank you. And Rebecca has a question.
I just wanted to ask if you've heard of the experiment where they had rats in a cage with not a comfortable environment and no companions and just water with cocaine or plain water,
Yes.
and they addicted. But then the rats that had other rats in a nice comfortable environment did not. And I feel like it's when I heard you say people who get addicted are sensitive people, I noticed myself thinking about that experiment, and I believe it's really chance and can happen to anyone if they have the luck of the draw is you grow up in poverty and have bad circumstances.
Yes.
And in AA programs it's a lot of surrender but also a lot of connection, right?
Yes.
You're with others who see you and validate you, can help you grow trust in humanity and beauty.
Yes. And I agree with you totally. Also something that I hear from many people who practice any form of sadhana and meditation, that's usually quite a lonely thing to be interested in. You don't do it so much with others in a group, and many people have expressed to me the longing for community in this.
I started off in a cult, so not my experience. That's really interesting to hear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and different religious groups can really have that as the glue that keeps you to it, and especially if you approach non-duality and Vedanta, it's usually the opposite. It's like an anti-cult because no one is trying to force anyone to anything. You're completely free.
Interesting.
And yeah, and as you heard me also, I say it sometimes, but that I'm not looking for followers. If you want to come and listen, listen. I don't want to create a group of great students that I can parade around. I don't care about that. I only care about if you can see the reflection in me and you can understand the freedom and love that is in you, then that is beautiful. That's the only thing I care about in this.
But it's interesting. I hadn't thought of that I don't have any image of a cult within non-dual teaching. It probably exists.
Yes, it exists, but then there is usually something else at you. And I can't stress this enough. I also, if you're with any group, just watch. If you watch from a distance, and if it's not possible to watch the teacher from a distance and just be a little bit like, I just want to look. Then if they say, no, you have to be all in, you have to do this or that, then don't be with them. You should be allowed just to watch for a while, and a long time, for a year if you want to, before you take any of the teachings really serious. Yeah. Because it's so easy to be charmed by by someone's charisma. There's so many people that are really good at presenting themselves. They're very charismatic. They're very good at like you feel drawn to them because they have so much power in that. But it means nothing if their message is flawed. If they just have an agenda or they're just trying to create something, have a very strong idea of control in that.
I think even just believing that you have the answer, and that entails following the joyful path in a very specific way and getting these empowerments and make things crumble from within.
Yes. And if you allow yourself to observe, then those things can be obvious. But if you just, it's also difficult with the human experience, because if you really want that kind of connection, you're longing for it so much, you just feel so drawn into it, then it's super difficult. How can you be objective in that? How can you just keep distance in that? So I understand all, and the feeling of desperation.
It's like you've said before about seeking spirituality because you want to end the suffering. I remember you talking, my recollection is you were sharing that as not being, you will not get so far with this. Like, I just want to end my suffering, I just want to end my suffering. But a lot of spirituality is thought, even by accident, is just marketed in that way, like all life coaches or something, you know, like
yes, but
solve your human problems with Dharma.
yes, and I think that it has to do with also the maturity with approaching this subject, because at first almost everyone just wants to feel better, and when you come to a point where you feel all right, or you might have, you understand that, okay, my sadhana is doing that, I'm feeling better, but is there really a change? What happens when I stop? This was very clear to me, because I did a lot of both yoga practices and I did vipassana meditation for many years, and I did a lot of it. And I felt like, and I had breaks in it, and it felt like I just became like I was before. If I upheld everything, and I did this very rigorous practice, standing on my head, doing all these yoga things, lifting my energies with Nauli and all these things, I could feel like I had a lot of energy, I didn't have to sleep much, and I felt very peaceful when I had 2-hour meditation every day. It's a very rigorous practice. And when I stopped, it just felt like my mind again grew shut. Like the garden got overgrown so quickly.
What was it that shifted for you that stopped happening, where the garden just stayed open?
Yes. It was a very, very clear thing that did that. And that was that I understood that I had to surrender. That is not through my effort. That I am not separate. I am not the doer of the sadhana. I had to surrender to something greater. So when I let the whole idea, which was very difficult for me, the whole idea of God into my life, that there is something, a greater force that I can surrender to, then it started to change in that sense. It started to become permanent.
I'm very curious how you felt God. How did that come about for you?
There was a specific situation that made me realize. I think I told this story before, some of you might have heard it. I met a teacher called Raya Krishna, and he came to the yoga center that I had at that time. He was a teacher from India, and he had very beautiful, he taught yoga and meditation, and we had a talk after his workshop, and he said to me, what is your sadhana, what are you practicing? And I said, yes, I do this 1 hour sitting meditation in the morning, 1 hour in the evening. And he says, is there any obstacles that you feel? And I said, yes, I feel like I still worry a lot. Almost every night when I go to bed, I worry about the next day and how things are going. And he just looked at me and he said, but that's just lack of faith. Like the most natural thing ever. And it just struck me so hard. I didn't know what to do with it at first, but it suddenly I had I was aware of something that I wasn't aware of before that. You need faith. And I thought that all these practices with like having an altar and singing bhajans felt religious, and just crazy people do that. So blind, and they don't know anything. They just follow something. They believe in a man in the sky, blah blah blah. And when that door opened for me, I'd started to feel, I was very drawn to images of Shiva. So sometimes just sat with images of Shiva and just looked at Shiva for a long time. And I remember I was in Rishikesh and was a painting in one of the alleyways of Shiva, and I just stood watching this painting for a long, long time. It was just, and then I started to have like images of Shiva. I bought this at some point and put it in a frame because it just felt like that. All these small things, and I started to sing bhajans with kirtan groups, and started really careful in the beginning, as in the furthest back, mumbling the lyrics. And after a couple of times I was one of those crazy people in the front dancing, chanting Shiva, all these. And also that the thing in me had to break a little bit, that because I was very concerned with how people would view me, that they would just be deterred by me and feel like I was just a crazy religious person. I had all those fears, and I felt very strongly that, okay, but if that is what it takes, it's all right. I had to come to terms with that. Okay, some people will just say, he's crazy, he fell into some crazy religious stuff, spiritual stuff, and now he walks around in a kurta and he's just weird. I don't want to hang out with him anymore. And I really had to come to like, okay, some people might have that idea, but what I also realized is that deep acceptance of the expressions that comes from this body and this experience, when I am in acceptance of that, then others can be in acceptance of that. So one big thing that happened is that the relationship with my parents changed a lot. They started to accept my spiritual things on a much deeper level that I didn't think was possible before. And nowadays, when they talk about me, they talk with pride about their son when it comes to this. And I heard my father a couple of months ago talking with another man almost in his age, and he said, yes, if you're interested in meditation, you have to understand that my son is like, he's the one that you should talk to. Yes, and to me this is a big surprise. I could never, when I was younger, I could never have imagined that he would say things like that. And all the things that come with that deep security, because suddenly you put your fundamentals in things that are really solid. To put your stability in God instead of material things, in your family, all these things that sound nice, but the moment something shakes in that, if a family member dies, if something changes, then it's complete disaster because there is no spiritual foundation in your life. And that stability that it creates also makes, in certain situations with people who are not so spiritually inclined, it feels like you have superpowers. When my grandmother died and my father, we're on her deathbed, and my father is really, really worried and don't know what to do, I can calmly tell him, this is her last moment, just be with her. And he follows my instructions because he knows that the grounding and the stability is there from me, so he can trust me and he can be in that as well. So there's so much beauty in the stability of that. And I didn't understand that it is a natural expression of the human to be spiritual. I thought that everything around it had to do with effort. I saw Buddha as like he really was determined, and he sat under the tree and he really did it. I didn't realize that he just completely surrendered into grace. That's it. He wasn't the man doing the thing at all. He was nothing. And you can hear these things and think that they're philosophical in some way, but they're actuality. They are the thing until the moment where your ego drops for a while completely. You will have a different view. And when that moment happens, you will say, oh shit, enlightenment is possible. Living through beingness without the ego is possible. It's not a fairy tale. It's not completely, it's not spiritual bypassing. It is the actuality of things.
Have you ever experienced an act of God, like in Christianity they talk about the hand of God reaching down and just like grabbing you, like you're mine, you don't get to
Yes.
treat yourself so badly, or just can be some random moment and it feels like a strike of just grace.
Yes. All the time.
Okay.
The strange thing, the intuitive sense can be so strong, and since there is trust, I think I also told this story before, but it's quite recent and it's just very obvious. It was, I had a watch that I lived for service with a watchmaker, and or a watch repair person, and I got it back and it didn't work. It needs some adjusting still. And I felt like I'm going to do it this week. And on the Monday came, and there came this strong sensation, you have to go now. You have to go to the watch repair guy now. So I'm like, okay, I can go now. So I walked there, and I was thinking of telling him that I'm coming, because he doesn't have his shop like in an open space. You have to like call him when you get there and he let you in. But something told me also not to do that. Just to go. Just go. So I felt this strongly, and this has happened to me so many times now that I know to just follow it. So I walked there, and I called him when I got there and said, I let you in, and we started to talk. And he said, yes, I don't know how quickly I can fix your watch. I have surgery tomorrow. Oh, I said, but if it's not too personal, can I ask you what the surgery is? Yes, of course. I'm having surgery for my cancer that I had now for 3.5 years. And he told me the whole story. He was from Canada, and they said that he had weeks left to live, and they said, but you can go to Sweden, to Lund, and they have an experimental treatment, and you can live your life here and do that if you want. So he did that, and now 3.5 years later, he had his last surgery now a couple of weeks ago. But it just felt like we had to, and I told him, I had skin cancer 3.5 years ago also. My body is healthy now, and we had like a talk about what does it do, this moment, what kind of trust comes from. And he said, I just meet so many wonderful people nowadays. Everyone is so wonderful. And I have to tell you a secret, he said to me. When people are angry, which there are sometimes when I repair a watch and they're not, it doesn't work perfectly, like your watch, some people get a bit angry with me. I can still enjoy the anger. They're yelling at me, but I'm just enjoying the moment that it's happening, that it's still there. And we had such a beautiful meeting. And if I would have waited until the next day, I wouldn't have seen him, because then he went into surgery in the morning. So that's why the intuitive said, you have to go now. And these kind of situations happens, especially with meeting people in my life. I don't know why that is, but it has happened to me before, that you just have to go and you just have to meet someone. It's like the universe is saying, God is saying, I need you now. You have to go here. It is strange still to me, but it's very obvious now. And it's also very, very beautiful. I don't argue with it. I just allow it.
I want to ask you so many more questions about Maharaj, but I will leave my questions there for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. You have a question? Yes.
Just kind of inspired by all that. A couple words that just stood out to me in hearing you talk, and that were just kind of lodged in me, were beauty and faith. And I was curious to hear what you might say about the relationship between beauty and faith.
We think of beauty very much like it could be a very superficial thing, like things are beautiful in their symmetry, or according to the golden ratio, or something like that. But what creates the beauty in things? What is it that makes the world so beautiful, overwhelmingly beautiful? It is always beingness. And that beingness very much comes from the acceptance of the moment as it is. Or, put in religious terms, faith. That is just another word for that. To really trust. If you don't want to use religious terms, you can say trust the universe. Trust the universe to do its thing. And I think it's beautiful that there is so many expressions of that. It is, you can call it the nothingness, you can call it awareness itself, you can call it Shiva, you can call it God, you can call it Allah, you can call it whatever. But it is that expression. And from my perspective, all those names are just different doors to the same. And beauty is it's just the fragrance of it. It's like love is also just a fragrance of beingness. And when the mind really settles and if there is this deep, quiet space, and you just look at the beauty of, you're just in a forest. Maybe you have seen this forest 1,000 times before, but suddenly everything is new. Everything is precious. You understand the transient nature of everything, and what does, and that means that every moment is precious. And like the watch repairman that I talked to, he saw that beauty in things because he didn't take his life for granted anymore. And that changes everything. I'm not sure if I answered your what you were looking for in your question with faith and
So,
it.
yeah, I think I just have a sense sometimes that like that capacity to feel beauty almost guides me in some way. That like it can be a kind of north star of like really attuning to what shines as beautiful, like true beauty. There's something that I feel like called toward.
Yes, and sometimes the outward the beauty of things can also inspire that. So they have like a relationship, but it is sometimes it's just associated so easily, depending, I think, very much on the disposition of the person. If some people are very visual and they just like the beauty of things, and that inspires the beauty of God, if you want to call it that. I think that's why like old churches are so, they put so much time into it, making everything beautiful, to just like reflect, because they felt so much probably love for God, that they feel like it has to reflect that. Do your best. Do whatever you can to make that correlate somehow. And with that simple relative beauty, there's also respect. If you make a space beautiful, you respect it. All these things are there, which is also has like spiritual undertones. Okay. Richard has brought his guitar today, so I will. I usually. Do you want to sit here? And yes, Guns N' Roses or Budgeons. Let's see what happens.
Metal every time then.
It's more rock and roll without the cushion. Yes. What do you feel like playing, Richard?
What about Hey Hey Godiva?
Yes. Hey Hey Govinda, Hey Hey Gopala, Hey Hey Govinda. Vasudeva He Nityananda Shri Radhe 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 Shama Shri Radhe 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 Shama He He Govinda He He Gopala He He Govinda He He Gopala He Vasudeva He Nityananda He Vasudeva He Nityananda Shri Radhe 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 Shama Shri Radhe 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 Shama He He Govinda He He Gopala He He Govinda He He Gopala He Vasudeva He Nityananda He Vasudeva He Nityananda Shri Radhe 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 Shama Shri Radhe 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 Shama He He Govinda He He Gopala He He Govinda He He Gopala be free and happy. Realize their true nature. Realize that they never were bound. May all beings see the splendor and grace of awareness itself. And make that their home in their heart. Thank you. I love you.